So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now hear from the venture capitalist, Mr. Mahesh Murthy, his insights on funding. And before I call him to take the mic, I will briefly introduce him. Mr. Mahesh Murthy is the founding partner of Seed Fund and has over 26 years of marketing and communications experience, of which 15 years are in online marketing. He has been a columnist for Business Today and Business World, Business Bazigar, and in the Wall Street Journal. So without further ado, Mahesh Murthy, partner and co-founder, Seed Fund. Big round of applause.
Very good. So somebody was telling me it's good to have you on after lunch. I asked why क्यों खाना मैं अगर आऊँगा तो खाना हजम नहीं होगा ना. So I'm here to talk to you about funding. I have a half an hour slot. I know many of you have many questions, so what I'll try to do is maybe just speak for 10-15 minutes and take 15 minutes of questions. If that's all right. I understand because you're in an e-commerce space. I'll try to restrict my remarks to funding around here. In terms of background, we funded e-commerce companies, right from infrastructure companies like Browntail, that some of you may have heard of, which allow you to sell on various international markets by going onto one place, to companies in travel like Redbus and Access Routes. So Access does about 3,000 hotels in India. Redbus does about 50,000 tickets per day online. All the way to electronic, accessories companies like Daily Objects, which or done by Nan, and so on and so forth, and Carvana. So this is some of the experience we had. I'm also known in some circles as somebody who's pessimistic on e-commerce, and I keep telling them, you can't call me pessimistic on e-commerce when I have 7 or 8 e-commerce investments myself. So let me just tell you how many people don't really understand how our business works. So if you understand how my business works, and it's the same as most other investors, you probably get to understand what we look at and what makes sense for us. To give you an idea, typically every month we get about 150 to 200 business plans, and every 2 or 3 months we decide to invest in one company. So a typical hit ratio, or now selection ratio, is 1 out of 500 or 1 out of 600. This doesn't mean that the other 499 companies or 599 companies are bad. It means that they don't fit into the kind of companies that we like to invest in. So I'll just try to explain that. It doesn't mean it just means that we're not a right fit. Just so you understand how we work, we're a fund. We manage about 350 crores right now. And the way a fund works is that we take money from our investors. Anybody from Google to Mahesh Murthy are people who have invested in funds like us. And we tell them that we will invest it and return this to you at the end of 10 years. And because we will return at the end of 10 years, we look to try to actually return it by the end of 8 years. So it's actually 8 plus 2. That means if I raised a fund in 2010, I have to return the money to my investors by 2018. Now think about it. For me to return the money to my investors by 2018, now first of all, just because I raised money in 2010, it doesn't mean that on day one I'm going to just write checks worth 350 crores. It takes time for us to sell in companies, maybe 2-3 years. So maybe 2013, 2014, and I'm still writing checks. That means my end is still 2018. So I may take 2-3 years to invest. So that means that my typical time that I can be with a company before I have to exit the company is 5, 6, 7 years. This is highly artificial. And it's a problem in our industry. I'll be the first one to point it out. Which company anywhere in the world has grown to greatness in 5 years? Nothing. Which Indian success story has gone public in 5 years? Nothing. Naukri took 11 years to go public. MakeMoney took 12 years to go public. Just Dial took 16 years to go public. Right? So we are already a victim of a system that we inherited from the Americans. Sure, in America, companies can go public in 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Even then, Facebook took 8.5 years, and Google took 9 years. So in some ways, we are almost like an artificial growth hormone, saying, if I inject this amount of money, how fast can you grow? So there is something inherently that's not right about our business. We are personally trying to set it right. It might take another 5-10 years to set this right, because our investors are used to investing 8-year periods. It's going to take a while to be able to change that mindset. We're working on that. But just so you know, we are focused on giving money back to our investors. Now, if I give money to a company, how do I get the money out? There are only 2 or 3 ways. First of all, by Indian law, we are not allowed to give debt. So even if I give you money, you can't give me earnings, you can't give me dividend, you can't give me profit sharing, you can't give me any of that. All I can do is I can give you money, you can give me shares. If you give me shares, I can't put the shares on the wall and pray to it every day and eat the shares. I have to sell the shares. Now who can buy the shares when I sell them? Only three categories of people. One, let's say you are the entrepreneur. So first of all, I start as a minority. I started 15, 20, 30, 40% of the company, not more than that, maybe 30, 25, right? You own 70, 75% of the company. I want to sell it to you now. I want to make maybe 5 times my money back, 10 times my money back, and I'll tell you why also. But if you already own 70% of the company, you won't give me a 10 times return on my money because you already control the company. And you have no interest in paying me that kind of money. So usually this thing called a management buyout is usually the worst way to do it. Because you're the manager, you are not going to buy me out, I'm a minority investor. I really don't have too many rights. So even though that option is there, it's a very rarely used option because you already own the majority of the company. Why would you pay a huge amount of money for a minority share? There are only 2 more options. The second option is going public. But as you know, that we are in this extremely short time frame. Which company in India has ever gone public in 5-6 years? So we've been working, the answer is no, nobody. But at least for the last 4-5 years, we've been pushing SEBI and BSE and NSE very hard to be able to take companies public earlier. So in the US, when I worked there, one of my companies public on NASDAQ, we did well. So NASDAQ was meant to be a young company, dynamic company exchange. So what we're trying right now with BSE and NSE is they do have actually like their younger brother exchanges. So BSE has something called BSE SME, which is likely to be rebranded, and NSE has something called LCA Munch, where even if you're loss-making and only exist for 2-3 years, you can still go public. So we're working, maybe this year or next year, we'll take a few companies out public there. So it's a work in progress. So we said, 1, you buy it back yourself. 2, we take it public. There's a third option, which is really the option that we all use, which is somebody else comes and buys a share. An acquirer comes. Mergers and acquisitions happen. Maybe Flipkart is buying Myntra. Maybe Flipkart is buying somebody else. XYZ is buying somebody else. Right? Now that one is actually a tough one because it's very hard to predict in the beginning, right from the beginning, who's going to buy it. Right? So these are all the uncertainties that plague us. When you put money in your company, we have only these 3 potential exits. Forget management buyout because we are never going to get the value. It's only IPO and merger acquisition. IPO also till now has not largely been a consideration. It's only merger and acquisition. Now, the problem there is merger and acquisition basically means that if you get into a company, you have to sell it. You have to sell yourself out. And many entrepreneurs say, boss, I don't want. That's okay. You know, the thing is, but if somebody buys a stake, maybe they'll be buying my stake out. That's okay. But then you have to be ready to get some other investor who buys my stake. I want to say all this because I don't want you guys to get a feeling that we have the easiest thing in the world. Yeah, aisa hai, deta kyun nahi hai? Right? We are trying to actually go through all of these hurdles in our head. But even then, in spite of it, in spite of all the restrictions, in spite of everything the government throws at us, in spite of every damn nonsense, we still managed to make some money. I mean, Redbus was a huge success. It was the biggest ever exit in the history of India. It happened to us last year. Carvana was the biggest ever exit in the history of India before that. So we've had, 2 of India's biggest exits. And here's what we've learned. So I can spend a few minutes talking to you about that. So one of the things that we've learned is that I grew up in the 80s and 90s where, if you take most businesses, you take the jewelry business, you take the automotive business, you take the pharma business, maybe business will, right? Essentially what happens is that the biggest company will have maybe a 10-20% market share. Or the next company will have 8, 10, 15%. Then, market shares go this way. There are many companies, in the top 10 companies, together only the top 20 companies will have 90% market share. In most businesses, that's the way, right? So even if you're a number 25 company, you can be a very big company. But what's really happened in the last 5 years is that the wired and connected world has thrown it entirely upside down. So when in the world of cars, the world's largest company today is Toyota with a 20% market share. Right? In the world of electric cars, the world's largest company is Tesla with 85% market share. Right? So what's really happened right now is that the world is becoming really biased where the number 1 company in most places has 85% market share. Look at it. In search, Google, 95% market share. In auctions, eBay, 80% plus market share. In broad e-commerce, Amazon is 8 times bigger than anybody else in the world. In social network, Facebook is 5 times bigger than anybody else. So You take example after example. What's really happening is market shares are, instead of going from like 2016, 18, 14, whatever, they're going 85, 8.5, 0.85. And if you're not number one, not number two, you're dead. You're not dead. Thing is, you can still, so where the curve was like this, earlier the curve is like this now. So many of us are there at this end, and we have no hope of breaking out there. Why is that a problem? That's not a problem. You can still make a living there. The problem is that if you're not number one and not number two, then I can't say it. Nobody wants to buy a number 5 e-com company. But look at it. Microsoft spent $6 or $7 billion, 40,000 crore rupees building Bing as a rival to Google. Nobody uses Bing. Right? So even after spending 40,000 crores, they're not able to get more than 2% market share, 3% market share. Right? So that's really kind of the nature of the beast. The nature of the beast has become such that you have to become absolutely the dominant market leader for, they're both below, between number 5 and number 10 companies. But out here in our business, do you find anybody in the new world a number 7 buying a number 8 company for any great value? It's not going to happen. Right? So we are in this world where it's become far, far more difficult for us to exist, because it's more difficult for us to exist. But we're still hopeful. We're coming back with more money and more fun, because when you hit it big, you hit it really big. That's what's become. The big has become much bigger, the small has become much smaller. So for us, what are the rules that we follow? One, in that business or in that plan that you have, is there a chance that you can become this extraordinarily dominant 80% plus market share? Is there a chance? B, what is going to give you that chance? Do you have a special technique? Do you have something that, what's going to do that? Again, when we looked into that, we figured that it's not great technology, it's not money, it's not anything. But what makes you that great 80% leader plus market share leader? You look at how Apple won the earlier smartphone business and then later lost it to Android. Apple won it because, not because they did it in research, they came up with this beautiful thing that was touchscreen phone. Nobody in research, nobody ever said, I want a phone where I touch it, but they, out of their minds, created something that was so delightful. They said, man, I've got to have that Apple phone. And they became the most valuable company in the world. And then came Android, and pretty much dismantled Apple. But again, with that simple sheer joy saying, I'll give you a better operating system with cheaper apps. One thing. The very interesting thing is in the early days, and this is almost a corollary, Apple never advertised. Android never advertised. And you'd almost see that almost as a rule. All the companies that are now number one in this new world have never advertised. Redbus has never advertised. Carvel has never advertised. Red Bull doesn't advertise. Starbucks doesn't advertise. Look at women's fashion. Zara is the world's largest company. $20 billion US in sales. All on ground. And Zara has never advertised in its history. So, that's an effect. But what's the cause? Why is it that these companies never needed to advertise? And we figured they never needed to advertise. Because they figured there was something so compelling about their business, so special. Consumers talked about it word of mouth. A woman goes into Zara. She loves it, she buys on the spot. Her friends say, well, I have to go to Zara. What was Zara's secret? Again, I'll just take a... It's not that they have super special clothes. They figured out the mentality of the woman. And she would go there and say, "Okay, I'm abhi mood nahi." So Zara did something very interesting. Every 15 days, they expire the inventory in the store. So if you go back to a Zara store within 15-20 days, it's not going to be there. Because they've sent it to another store. That store's maal has come here. Woman says, "Wo kahan gaya?" "Gaya." Now she says, "Acha, is baar jo hai main abhi kharidungi." That's what they did. They simply expired the inventory. It's called fast fashion. We learned from that and put it in one of our e-com companies called Done by Now. But what we do is we deliberately expire inventory. Even if we had it, first of all, we just order small numbers. If we suppose 4 pieces, they go like that. When you say 40 pieces, nobody buys it. Right? So we figured something out of that. Okay. The key thing is, all I'm trying to say is, do you have that one compelling reason? Another great example, WhatsApp. Got sold for $18 billion. And they proudly say, forget marketing budget, we don't have a marketing person in the company. What did they do? Again, they focused on doing this one thing. WhatsApp could have very easily sold on PC. It could have come on PC, it could have come on SMS, it could have been on everything. They said, no, we'll only be on the smartphone. We won't even come on the PC. We won't even come on the tablet. And all they did was one thing, and they just simply dominated that space. By building a product that is so special, so focused, and so unique that wins all the word of mouth. And they figured out what made WhatsApp work is groups. all of our groups, alumni groups, customer group, vendor group, they're all on WhatsApp. That's all they did, only one thing. WeChat with much more time and much more money could not catch up with them. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people who have the ability to not just focus, but to have that one extraordinary special thing that will make that business go by word of mouth. The thing is, even after doing all that, we still fail. So I wanted to tell you how our business works. So typically what do we say? The truism that, so the way it works elsewhere in the world is, for an average venture capitalist, out of every 10 companies, 2 are super hits. 2 completely collapse and 100% loss. 2, 3 are, you make 3x, 5x, 2x returns. And 2, 3 you can never exit. मतलब they're the living dead, the zombie companies. चलते रहते हैं, पता नहीं चल रहा है पर exit नहीं हो पा रहा है. Now, across all of this, if I take the average returns, it's about 16, 17, 18, 20% IRR per year. Right? Which is why in India our record has been a little better. Our IRR is on 27, 28, whatever percent, but that's okay. But hence what we have to say is, because we know some companies, even after all of this, some will fail, and some will float and be the zombies, and some will give us smaller returns, and only a couple will give us super big returns. In every case, we have to almost aim for saying, can I get a 10x return in every case? Because I know, even if I put that filter in the end, I will still have the same, 2 great, 2 dead, 2 or 3 kind of okay, 2 or 3 kind of zombies. And that's the ratio that we work with. Which is why we put very, very high standards in the company. We come to saying, even with all of this, the fact is, with all of this work, we still fail. Because we figure money is not the only thing. So apart from this, can you be big, can you be talked about it, can you have this great word of mouth? We look at 1 or 2 other things. One is, do we know anything about your sector that we can help you? Because in the early stages of the company, it's not just money that matters. So my partners in the fund, everybody is an ex-entrepreneur. I've been working now for 30 years myself, right? So we look at things that go to our strengths. My strength is more brand and consumer. And so that a few other people. So we tend not to do B2B businesses because we don't understand it. Okay? Similarly, other funds have different focuses. So when you're looking for a fund, find somebody who understands your sector better than the other person. Because the most important value addition is not the money that you're going to get. It's the time that you're going to get. The third thing is that, so apart from that, we still look at 1 or 2 other things. So one, do we get along? Because we're going to have times which are very tense, times which are tough, times when we laugh, times when we cry. At the end of the day, we sit back and say, can I just chill, maybe have a glass of beer with this guy, and it'll still be okay. Guy or girl, sorry, I don't mean to be sexist, right? So we just sit back and say, do we get along? Because if it's like a fighting thing, then it's already our life is so tense. We now manage a portfolio of 35 companies, right? That we don't want to have even more pressure on that. So we're only a team of 7 investors. We're managing 35 companies right now. So with all of this, we try to do well. So sometimes many of us don't do well. Some of us are lucky enough to do a little well. So that's a little bit about the business and how it works and how we look at businesses going forward. I'll spend a minute or 2 and we have again 12-15 minutes for Q&A on e-commerce. Again, the thing in e-commerce is many people came into India thinking that just like China has its e-commerce giants, India will have its e-commerce giants. So the reason for that was, China's got this Great Wall of China, which is like no non-Chinese company can do it in China, because unless your hand in, the government has his hand is in your pocket, you can't do well. So Google was kicked out of China, Facebook is blocked in China, Twitter is blocked in China, Amazon never could do well in China, and so on and so forth, right? So hence Chinese companies grew because the government has a protectionist stance. India never had this. So many people who came to India were thinking, let me build the Google of India, Guruji.com, died. Let me build the Facebook of India, Migglebox.com, died. Let me build the Twitter of India. Nobody even tried. So a lot of people say, let's build the X of India. And we are very, very nervous when you hear somebody say, let's build the X of India. Because almost in every single case, including Flipkart, it's going to die. So we will. Because you can't build the copy-paste. In India, copy-paste, our history has been copy-paste. For 60 years, all our businessmen have been, बाहर से कुछ technology ला दिया, किसी ने मेरे को license दे दिया, बस exploit. I never did any innovation because my innovation was in how I bribed the government to give me a license. Right? That's all, because our entire industry, nothing's been built on innovation. It's been built on license structure. And hence a lot of our thinking was, let me go to Bangkok, pick up something and come and sell it. The thing is, the world is becoming more and more flat. So you can't copy paste. So we're looking for companies, and especially again, whether it's My Dentist, which is today the biggest dental chain in India, or Carvali, which sells 1,500 crores a month, cars a month, which is India's largest car dealership, online or on ground, or any of these other companies. We're looking for a company which is unique and solving an Indian problem. It's not built on any other company. So you'll find that the successful companies in India, which are actually profitable, are not copy paste of any company anywhere in the world. So we're very, very suspicious of copy paste companies. You may have the inspiration, but unless you figure out you're really solving a problem for an Indian condition, you're not likely to succeed. Because finally, in the end, somebody started Bazi, but then they got borrowed because eBay came and won that business. Right? So if you want to build a long-term company, you can't build a copy-paste company. You have to do something original. So with that, I've got 10, 12 minutes left. I'm happy to take your questions. Can I have a show of hands of people who have a question? Ma'am, you're one. Anybody else? Sir, you're two. Anybody else? Sir, you're three. Sir, you're four. Okay, we'll start with the lady. Can somebody send a microphone to the lady there? And then after that, to the gentleman there, then three, and this gentleman, in the cream shirt is four. She put the hand up, you put five. Both. You're number five. All right. You stole the mic.
Hi Mahesh, I'm Aparna. I run an e-commerce store called greenandgood.com. My question is, typically e-commerce in India has been focusing on, like you said, capturing the market share and not so much on profitability. What would you advise other e-commerce players, especially the smaller companies, startups?
I think market share is kind of meaningless unless you're profitable. If you're not profitable, you're not a real business. You're a topi company, right? What happens today? Again, I'm speaking on my personal behalf and not on behalf of Seafront or something. If you take a company like Flipkart or something, they're now so over-invested by other people. Now the original entrepreneurs don't even own single digits percentage of their own company. So now, because the investors own so much of the company, the investors figure out, boss, you have to do something. Itna paisa डाल दिया. They put 3,500 crores into the company. So they figure out a way where एक दूसरे पे टोपी लगा के कुछ ना कुछ करके. So basically now they're forcing a merger. Because they own 85% of two companies, they're pushing it together. So finally, in the end, the person gets to the entrepreneur. Right? And net, it's a topi business. You put the topi on somebody else. At the end of the day, it's still not a real business. I urge you to build a real business. In the long term, those are the only sustainable things that work. Right? So, don't worry about market share for the sake of market share. If you can win market share by word of mouth, by sheer consumer delight, that's the right way to win market share. You can't win market share by discounting. Because you try discounting, you'll die. Anybody who's tried discounting has died. Right? Discounting is the way to kill your company faster. It's basically venture capitalists who are subsidizing your customers. You have government subsidy. In many cases, last 3 years we had VC subsidy to customers. आपका माल का 30% will be paid by the VC. So obviously, we are also smart. We go right click, copy, इधर सस्ता मिल लीजिए यहाँ से ले लो. That's us. That's the same consumer everywhere in the world. So that's my only advice. Yeah. Sir?
Sir, recording is when you pick the
so my question is one.
Yeah.
Just introduce yourself, say your name, company name, and then ask a question. Yes, sir. About.
Ma'am, give it this.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
The thing is, I can hear you, but I'd like everybody to hear you.
So my name is Akhar. I run a website by the name of rajram.com. My simple question is, like you mentioned that, there's a lot of copy-paste going on, and of course, all sorts of aspects. The technologies that have come in Europe and US certainly being replicated in India. But my question is, when you are looking at a firm for funding prospects, there are two things you probably look at. One is the product, what's the product that they're selling, and the other is how strong are their processes. My question to you would be, which is more important?
So actually it's neither of those. We basically know that one of the things we figured out is that the plan that we start with is rarely the plan that we end up executing. So what we look at, so it's not about the product and neither is it about the process. We look at saying, first of all, this thing that they want to do is a big enough dream. Can it make a dent in the universe? Second, there's a bunch of guys who's doing it, whatever you want to call the team or whatever. Are there the jugados and the deeply committed guys who will leave no stone unturned to it? Because we're going to keep changing our model and everything from day to day and week to week and month to month. So if you're a corporate guy saying, this is it, I have a 3-year plan and I'll drive down that road, then we know that maybe in 2 months you know that's not working, so you should have the ability to be able to change. So we look for that, whatever you want to call it, comfort with ambiguity, that you're comfortable that The world is ambiguous, it's not clear. Okay, there's, as you keep walking, the mist clears a little bit, 6 inches at a time. So we look for those kinds of people. Right? So that's probably far more important, either product or process.
So you look more at the person and running the product rather.
First is an overall offering. Can we actually, is this person or is this team doing something that is so incredible?
Out of the world.
Yeah, that actually is, everybody else is here, these guys are there. Because that's what we want to look for. Because if you are doing a commodity business, then we can't fund you. Yeah. I hope that answers the question. The third question was there, and I'll come to you, so you're number 4.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, hello sir. My name is Dilnawaz Khan and I am from Startup Voices. I have 2 questions. The first question is that, like you said, that advertising doesn't work out. Like the companies who have been successful, they don't need advertising. So, but for any startup based out of India, somebody like in Jaipur, they do need to advertise their product. So, what is the best?
Oh, why do you say that?
Like, how did they lead the customer? So,
What is the ad budget of Lal Mas, which is Jaipur's most famous mutton dish?
But it has been there since like. No, I want a tip from your end in terms of like that.
Yeah, I understand.
What suggestion do you have for very early startups?
It doesn't matter. If I look at it, like, everybody's heard of Skype. Skype came out of Estonia. Coca-Cola came out of Atlanta in Georgia. Procter & Gamble is from Cincinnati in Ohio. These big companies haven't necessarily come out of New York and London. There's no reason that the next big global company can't come out of Jaipur. So I think this entire I keep saying geography is history. The fact that you have to have a big geographical presence is. So don't worry so much. I think you can be anywhere in the world, whether it's Jaipur or wherever, it's still fine. Right? I think the key thing is, do you have a product or an offering that is so compelling that people talk about it like crazy? I think that's important. So if you're not getting traction, go back and look at your product and say that there's something wrong with the product.
So the question actually was that how to get the customer base and then how to advertise it. What are tips on that?
So the customer base is very simple. You want to start with one customer. To get one customer, how many do you need to talk to? Maybe 5 people. Go talk to 5 people. One will buy. If that guy is happy, the second he'll tell 5 other people. The second will buy. If that guy is happy, he'll tell 10 other people. The third will buy. That's how every great company in the world in the last 5-10 years has grown. Google did not win 95% global market share by advertising from day one. WhatsApp never had Parinki Chopra and, they didn't have to do all of that nonsense. Almost the reason to spend on advertising is the admission that your product is not good enough. I keep telling people, your marketing IQ is inversely proportional to your marketing budget. So figure out where you want to. Yeah? This gentleman, and I'll come to you.
I am Director of Jovis Techno Services. My question is, if you could explain for an early stage, like if you just have an idea and you need even funding to develop the product, like you need to do R&D, do VCs come into picture or do we have to go to angel funding? And if you can also elaborate the difference between angel, VC and private equity. And is it possible today still to get funding on ideas that used to be earlier, or do you have to build a prototype to get funding?
Sure, good questions. So basically, private equity or hedge fund are typically people who manage amounts more than 1,000 crores. Now the problem is that when you're managing 1,000 crores, 2,000 crores, 5,000 crores of money, you have a limited amount of bandwidth. There's only that many people. And most PE funds or VC funds or whatever from top to bottom, nobody can look at more than 10, 20 companies at a time in a fund. So you're managing 2,000 crores, you have 20 companies. That means on average each company should be deserving of 100 crores of money. And hence if you only need 1 lakh, you're not going to look at it. For a simple reason, one, they don't have the time. Two, even if your 1 lakh becomes 1 crore, it's 100 times return. In their overall return, the 2,000 crores become 2,001 crores. It's not moving the dial there. So hence they're looking for companies who can move the dial of their return. Right? So below them come, growth funds. And growth funds are typically people with, again, about 1,000 crores, 3,000 crores. Right? I think actually PE funds are those with more than 3,000 crores. Growth funds. Then again, about $200 million in US terms. They again people in 20 companies. That means per company they have to do about 20 crores. 120 to 40 crores. Some of them prefer doing 40 to 50 crores. When they do that, For them to get into a company at 50 crores and take a minority stake, the company is to be worth 120, 150 crores. So if you're not worth that, you're not going to be able to get there. The run below us is people like us, the venture capital funds. So we start at around 200, 300 crores and go all the way up to 1,000 crores. So for us, our bite size is about 5, 10 crores per company. Now what we can do is sometimes we can start with 1 crore. But even to start with 1 crore, we have to value it, you get 2.5 crores to start with. So very difficult to value just an idea at 2.5 crores. So in very, very rare cases, we might team up with an angel to do something where we believe that we just grow it fast. But usually what's right for somebody who just has an idea is actually how much money does it take to really build an idea? I mean, if it's a website, I think 10 years ago, a website cost 2 crores to build. Today, a website costs maybe 2 weeks to build. And it could be free because most of the cost of starting a business has come down dramatically in the last 10 years. So the first thing I'd say is that don't look for somebody to fund your idea. Go build it out yourself. That's the first sign of confidence that you can show, right? And if it's something very complicated with a lot of machinery and so on and so forth, then get talk to angels. Angels are the people, and again, there are 2 categories. There's angel networks, like Mumbai Angels and you have Indian Angel Network. The networks each can kind of put like up to 1 crore into an idea. Or 2 crores into an idea. And below that are the angels, individual angels, who can put 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs. Okay. Also at the same time, you should not discount the government. For example, SIDBI, the government of India has a loan scheme called CGTSB, right? The Credit Guarantee Trust for Small and Medium Enterprises. What that means is you go to any nationalized bank, you go to the plan. They have the ability to get the first 1 crore collateral free to you. So they can lend you up to 1 CR without collateral, because that 1 CR is guaranteed by the CGTSB. It's called the CGTSB scheme. It's pretty big. So for 2,500 companies took 1 crore each last year from the guaranteed by the government of India. Many of them are companies like us. We also told our companies go get CGTSB 1 crore because it's kind of easy money, and they work hard with you, and they also connect you with other people.
This 1 crore, there's no shares of the company, right?
No, there's no shares. It's debt. It's debt with a very small. It's debt. It's just debt.
I'm not selling my company, I'm just borrowing.
Yeah, you're borrowing, but what they'll ask for is kind of 1%, 2% of the company. As kind of if it works out well after 2 years.
And in your case, like.
So for most investors, I mean, for most men, that was just an example. Most investors will at least want 26% of the company, but we want less than 40% of the company. We don't want to take management of ownership of the company. We don't have time to manage or run a company. So typically, the median is about 30, 35%, 32%, 28%. Anyway, thereabouts is really where most people are.
So the benefit that I get is basically you can
Actually, you can. IPO, we haven't managed to IPO yet in India. I hope in the next year or 2 I'll be able to come back and tell you that I managed an IPO in India yet. I did take one of my older companies personally IPO on BSC, but not one of my current industry companies. So the thing is, the benefit, what I can tell you at the early stage, actually the benefit, if you talk to people who have been through it, is the time spent by the investor, not the money. It's the time and the guidance and the mentorship that's spent. All the stuff we talk about is stuff that we've learned by doing it ourselves. I'm not an MBA or whatever, I'm a 12th class pass, I didn't go to college. Whatever we've learned, we've learned on our own feet. Thanks. And I answer your question. And it's a big sense saying this time is over, so here is the last one.
So, my name is Nidhi.
Hi.
I'm a co-founder of e-commerce company called Murhty.com. Basically from Silicon Valley, both of us, me and my partner, we started from a garage startup. What I wanted to ask you was, we've done very well in the last 18 months in terms of organic growth. Now, a lot of times I'm a marketing person, he's finance, and when we have a strategic meetings, the basic debate is, I feel, why don't we go for funding? It'll help us to grow much faster, and the other point of view is maybe we should do it more organically, grow slow and steady. Now, what I wanted to ask you was, one, if the aim of a company is to get acquired and exit, then is it better to go for funding because that would help us to get more network or more plugged into getting acquired because another person has vested interest? Two, is getting funded, what would you recommend if somebody is doing reasonably well in terms of the growth pattern? Just continue to grow organically and see where you go, or if you think you're growing well and get in touch with a VC or an angel investor or whatever, maybe not angel, and try and see phenomenal growth?
It's hard to answer your question, because everything depends on you, right? So what do I mean by that? So I'll take some examples. You talked about coming to the value. Look at WhatsApp. WhatsApp never needed money, alright? Never waited to raise money. Desperately funds quoted it, and one fund said, where he can put some 10 million dollars. They didn't want to see their face, right? And they went and sold for $18 billion. Almost entirely organic, right? And there are many companies like that. So even out here in India, I mean, all the Indian entrepreneurs you admire, whether it's Mahesh Murthy, whether it's Nazim Premji or Dhirubhai Ambani, whatever, they never took VC funding. They grew companies organically, right? So it depends on what you want to do. If you want to build a company for a lifetime, and this is your company, then remember that when you take funding, the meter goes down, the meter starts ticking, because in 6, 7, 8 years, that investor is going to say, I want out. So you've got to give that investor an exit. So you've got to figure out in 6, 7, 8 years, where do you get like that 5x, 10x amount that the investor wants you to get. And if you can't get it from an IPO, then you have to get it from a sale. You have to be ready to do that. Alright? But it's your choice. It's not my choice, right? Even if you're a private company, you still want to be on a track to get acquired sometime. You don't have to necessarily go and get a VC. Go get a bunch of advisors. Give them 0.25% or 0.5% of the company and make them part of the advisory board or even board of directors. They will get you the network. For getting the network, you don't need to get investment. With the investment, you will get the network. But you can also get the network without the investment. Or even without that, get an advisor. You get investment bankers. They'll work for you. You be part of TAI in Jaipur or TAI in Denver or wherever else it is. You can get even free advice. Right? So don't let anybody believe that because I invest in you, I'll get you sold. It's not necessarily true. Many companies that get investments actually also die. Right? So I don't want to lie about this entire. But you can separate these things. If all you say is, I'll grow organically and one day I'll sell. But get somebody you believe is networked enough to be some part of your company, make them an advisor if they're willing, and they will network you at their point because they are personally, incentivized. I hope that's it. Thanks so much, guys. I think I'm out of time. What I'm going to do is just share my email address with you. It's just mahesh@seedfund.in. And if you want to send plans, it's info@seedfund.in. And I hope that's okay. Thanks, guys. I hope that was all right. Thank you.